how's it going? Good evening, everyone. I'm slightly off-center tonight. It's Friday night. We're chilling, no worries. Andy's here with me, wrapping up some work. It's not the camera this time, I don't think, dear. It's just me being a little off-kilter as usual. Nothing new there. We are going to talk about a few of the big breaking stories, and then I'm going to leave a little bit early. Hey, Andy, can I have my laptop charger back, please, good sir? Thank you, my friend. I just don't want my laptop to die while I'm recording. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. I know there's always a bunch of stuff going on Friday night, so viewership is always a little lower, which is fine. I appreciate you guys taking out a little time for me. I have a few things I wanted to talk about today, and as I said earlier, I'm going to be leaving a little bit early so that I can join Larry Sharp over on the Sharp Way. The link is in the pinned comment over there in the chat. So if you guys want to go check that out after the fact, I would love to see you all there. As I said before, though, I know it's a Friday night. Everything's slower. Everyone's a little busy. I love that for everybody. So get out there and have fun. But if you are interested in hearing the news, I'm about to break down some of it for you. We're going to start talking about Ron DeSantis. We're going to look at the crazy school board member who says mean things about white people. We're going to figure out why Disney is dying. We're going to talk about the woke British guy who went to New York City and was left sobbing by the naked capitalism. Interesting story. We're also going to look at what Americans think of Biden's spending as we hit our debt ceiling the other day. And we're going to look at the Biden files and then hopefully wrap it up a little bit early so I can skedaddle on over to hang out with Larry Sharp, who's a super awesome guy. If you guys aren't familiar with Larry, go check him out. Check out his show for sure. It's called The Sharp Way, and I'm looking forward to talking to him. So let's get started talking about Ron DeSantis because much hay is being made by the liberal media over the fact that he decided to actually enforce one of his rules about critical race theory in schools. So here we are with Newsweek, which we love. Fact check. Did Ron DeSantis ban AP African American Studies in Florida? So they say partly true, partly false. Since his election, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has opposed education practices that he argues take an unduly critical view of America's history and its relationship to race. I believe he has an issue with American history that is presented in a dishonest way. I think that's probably a better way of putting that, Newsweek. Let's be fair. Last year, DeSantis prohibited educators from teaching about critical race theory in K-12 classrooms, part of a bill he said would put an end to corporate and educational indoctrination in Florida. Recently, the Republican governor attracted criticism from his political opponent after his administration's decision to reject a new supplementary high school course in African American Studies, with some pointing the blame directly at him. And the subtitle to this picture says, Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis' office has defended a decision by his administration to reject an AP course in African American Studies. Ron DeSantis has previously taken action to ban critical race theory and the New York Times 1619 Project in Florida schools. The 1619 Project began as a collection of essays re-examining the legacy of slavery in the U.S. in a special issue of the New York Times Magazine in 2019. The author of the 1619 Project has herself said that it is not actually history and should not be treated as such. Worth knowing, Newsweek, thank you. Here's the claim. A tweet by Democratic New York Congressman Richie Torres, posted on January 19, 2022, claimed that Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis had banned the teaching of AP African American Studies in Florida. Torres' tweet, which has been viewed more than 6.8 million times, added, Florida has gone from don't say gay to don't say black. Okay, first of all, don't say gay was never a thing. It was simply a bill that enabled parents to have more control over their children's education and be more informed about what they were being taught. Richie Torres' characterization is at best specious. We're using a bunch of big words tonight. Get on board. The facts. The Advanced Placement, AP, African American Studies course for high school students was part of a pilot scheme at 60 schools across the country, administered by the College Board, which oversees AP. According to its website, AP lets high school students try college-level work with exams contributing to college credit and placement. However, in a letter dated January 12th from the Florida Department of Education's Office of Articulation, seen by Newsweek, the course was rejected due to what it said were issues with its content. In its current form, the College Board's AP African American Studies course lacks educational value and is contrary to Florida law. Cassandra Palelis, press secretary for the Florida Department of Education, told Newsweek, "If a course comes into compliance and incorporates historically accurate content, then the department will reopen the discussion." That seems fair. This guy is being exceedingly hyperbolic, Richie Torres. In a separate statement to Newsweek, DeSantis Deputy Press Secretary Jeremy Redfern said the course as it exists lacks historical accuracy and educational value. Jeremy's great too, much like Christina Pushaw, who also worked with Governor DeSantis. The decision was criticized on social media, including the tweet by Torres. An information page for the AP program states that it is in development, with hundreds of additional schools to join the pilot between 2023 and 2024. It won't be until next year that all schools can be offered the AP course. Its website adds the AP program is committed to developing AP African American Studies and has already engaged faculty from hundreds of colleges and universities to ensure the course reflects the academic rigor of introductory college courses within the discipline. A page on course development states that courses typically undergo a 2 to 6 year development process before they're implemented in classrooms, with development committees set up to determine the general content and ability level of each exam. As mentioned, the Florida Department of Education has said it is willing to reopen the discussion about the course should the content change. Additionally, a report by the BBC stated that the College Board said its course was undergoing a rigorous multi-year pilot phase, collecting feedback from teachers, students, scholars, and policymakers. We look forward to bringing this rich and inspiring exploration of African American history and culture to students across the country. Whether a reopened discussion will lead to the approval of the African American Studies course remains to be seen, but the blockage is not necessarily a permanent outright ban. DeSantis has been critical of the teaching of critical race theory, last year signing a House bill known as the STOP Stop Woke Act, which among other things aims to revise requirements for required instruction on the history of African Americans. A statement on DeSantis' website following his signing of the bill said this legislation is the first of its kind in the nation to take on both corporate wokeness and the critical race theory in schools in one act. Newsweek has contacted DeSantis, the Florida Department of Education, the College Board, and Richie Torres for comment. It sounds like nobody got back to them. The ruling needs context. The African American Studies AP course was blocked in its current form by DeSantis' administration, but the Florida Department of Education said it would reopen discussions about a revised version that was in compliance with the state law. So they're saying it needs context. It's closer to being true than untrue. Here in yellow, it says unverified. Then in orange, it says satire, which is closer to false. I think that's really unfair. We have misleading material and then full on false. Okay, I can respect that they just think it needs context. And I also respect everything that Ron DeSantis has done to try to keep this stuff out of schools. There was a time when everybody was saying that critical race theory was only taught in advanced courses in law school. Well, they've dropped that charade altogether because it's becoming incredibly apparent that it's everywhere. And one of the things we noticed at Timcast IRL was that it's not just a course of critical race theory. It's called practice. It's applied practice, practical teachings of the ideas behind critical race theory, which are even more dangerous than just a single course. If you have them teaching a single course, you could just say, oh, well, you can't teach that course anymore. But no, the praxis is different because it gets into everything. And I know you guys have seen some of these woke math questions, some of this woke English stuff. English is ripe for it. All of the liberal arts majors are, for sure. All of those subjects are subject to serious ghetto rigging when it comes to critical race theory. But I think probably the biggest thing to come out of this fact check and this conversation about AP African American Studies in Florida is that hopefully anyone who pays attention to the news and has children in the school system will start to pay very close attention to some of these AP programs. I view that as a huge win, and I'm really glad that Florida is sticking by its guns. There was something else that came up the other day. There was a prosecutor who said that he wouldn't. Ron DeSantis, prosecutor. Rules. He put a Let's see. Judge rules DeSantis violated state law but upholds a suspension. Interesting. Okay, so let's read this as we go by too. Judge rules DeSantis ouster of prosecutor was unconstitutional but upholds the suspension. So let's read more. The issue could now go before the Florida Senate, which is responsible for removing the office from office officials who have been suspended by the government. I don't remember what this prosecutor was suspended for. He literally just said, oh, there's a new Florida state law. I'm not going to enforce it. Don't worry. A federal judge on Friday ruled that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis violated the Constitution when he suspended former Hillsborough County State Attorney Andrew Warren, but the judge said he didn't have the authority to reinstate the twice-elected Democrat. In a nearly 60-page ruling, U.S. District Judge Robert Hinkle overwhelmingly sided with Warren, who was ousted by DeSantis in August after Warren pledged not to prosecute women. Not to prosecute women for violating Florida's recently enacted ban on abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. DeSantis also said he suspended the prosecutor for stating he wouldn't criminally charge anyone for providing gender-affirming care to transgender patients, even though state law doesn't address that issue. Okay, so I'm going to throw this question to you guys. Does a prosecutor have a right to say, and I know you guys probably aren't legal scholars, I'm not either, what does your common sense tell you about a prosecutor who refuses to enforce a state law? Does that prosecutor get to keep his job? Really curious how this pans out in the end, because this judge agreed with the prosecutor, but he still didn't overturn his suspension. Let's see what the conclusion is. The issue is currently on hold in the Senate until the legal proceedings are resolved, including any potential appeals. Let's see what the issue is exactly. As justification for the suspension, DeSantis' legal team also brought up former GOP Governor Rick Scott's 2017 decision to reassign death penalty eligible cases from Aramis Ayala, the former state attorney for Orange and Osceola counties, after she said she would never pursue the death penalty even in the cases that absolutely deserve the death penalty. In his ruling, Hinkle noted that no one ever suggested removing Ayala from office and that Warren never made similar statements. Quite the contrary, Hinkle wrote. Warren said repeatedly that discretion would be exercised at every state of the case. The issue now could go before the Florida Senate, which is responsible for removing from office officials who've been suspended by the governor. The issue is currently on hold in the Senate until the legal proceedings are resolved, including any potential appeals. Senate President Kathleen Passidomo, Republican from Naples, sent a memo to her members Friday morning after the Hinkle ruling, telling them that the issue isn't completed. As such, the matter of Mr. Warren's reinstatement or removal from office by the Florida Senate appellate remedies have been exhausted. Okay, so what do you guys think of this? Did DeSantis overstep? Did the prosecutor overstep? What do you think? Let's see what y'all are saying. Let's switch over to this shot too. All right, good evening, everyone. Hi. Somebody says skedaddle. Don't skedaddle, stay here. I like that the fact that I disagree with you on Crowder Daily Wire issue, but I'm still an adult and enjoy your content nonetheless. Well, I appreciate that, Keenan. That's how you know you're on the right side of the aisle, is when you know that you can disagree with someone and still get along with them. I think that's the right thing to do. Gross College Board is such a scam, says Sir Ranko Productions. Oh, I'm not familiar. They're the people that put the AP courses together. That truth scale doesn't really make sense. Yeah, I agree. Why is this rating system valid in any way? It's a subjective rating on facts. Seems kind of silly. I agree. 100%. 100%. Keenan notes that Praxis is like the Veritas latest drop. I actually didn't have a chance to look closely at the latest Veritas drop. I saw that it was super good, and the person in question just kept doubling down, which was very interesting. At least he's willing to express his views honestly, I suppose. It's better than having someone run away when they're called on the carpet. I respect honesty from all different angles. Keenan says governors created their own law during the pandemic. Sheriffs enforced edicts. I'm not sure about that. He says, it seems like they can quit if they don't want to enforce the law. I entirely agree. Certainly a suspension is in order, I think. Law enforcement officers should never enforce an unjust rule simply because they are required to just do their jobs. Yes, there are sheriffs in Illinois who are refusing to enforce this incredibly unconstitutional gun law, and they're being blasted for it, but it doesn't matter because when they were sworn in, they swore to uphold the Constitution, not Governor Pritzker's whims, and I think that's a good thing. I think you should hold all of your governors accountable, including DeSantis. To me, this particular choice of his to suspend this prosecutor is a little bit strong. I'm curious what his reasoning was. I'm sure there was something to it, but I'm aware that every single person can make mistakes, whether their name is Trump or DeSantis, for sure. All right, hustling right along here. Let's talk about this super woke school board member. Parents line up to slam woke Michigan school board member for saying whiteness is evil and that white people are more dangerous than wild animals. Nice. Jackson Public Schools board member under fire for tweeting whiteness is evil. Kesha Hamilton faced parents in Tuesday meeting which required extra security. Yeah, no kidding. Hamilton, whose ex-husband is white, has not deleted tweets from December. Parents demanded a Michigan school board member be fired on Tuesday after she tweeted whiteness is evil and insisted Caucasian people are more dangerous than wild animals. Kesha Hamilton has written a series of inflammatory posts on Twitter claiming whiteness was synonymous with racism and urging people to be safe around white folks. Hamilton, whose ex-husband is white, I bet you a nickel that that's why she's bitter about it, at least partly, faced parents and teachers in a tense board meeting for Jackson Public Schools, which required extra security due to protests staged at the school by far-right group. You know, it doesn't really sound like it's actually a far-right group. It sounds like somebody who's really freaking annoyed that their entire race was designated as evil, and all of them were considered more dangerous than wild animals. Kesha Hamilton, here she is. Whiteness is so evil it manipulates and says, I won't apologize for my dishonesty and trauma-inducing practices, and thinks you should applaud it for being honest about its ability to manipulate and be dishonest. It literally just sounds like she's talking about her ex-husband, doesn't it? The last thing you have to worry about is an animal, though that could be a very real threat. More dangerous are any white folks you may see on the trail. Be safe. Jeez, what the heck? On December 18th, she wrote on Twitter, whiteness is so evil. Yep, recaps both of those. The mother of 6 kids getting these kinds of ideas. Doubled down on her statements, which she has not deleted from her public profile. She told the meeting this week, we have to ask ourselves, what are we angered over, the fact that it was said or the fact that it is true? Oh my. She added, we must educate ourselves about how these racial disparities are impacting us and our neighbors and not let them be successful in silencing us. She continues to work as a school board member for Jackson Public Schools, which represents several schools across Jackson, Michigan. Hamilton was elected in 2020, though her term expires at the end of 2026. It is unclear how much she is paid for the role. DailyMail.com has contacted Jackson Public Schools for comment. Sounds like they didn't get it. One parent told Tuesday's meeting that Hamilton was an angry and bitter judge. Mom Gina Hastings added, somebody put her in an influential position and must be held to a high standard. She must be a representative for all students in the JPS system. Well, of course. It says, Kesha Hamilton, what letter is this? A statement on Diversity Minds Consulting, LLC, reveals Hamilton was previously married to a white man with the experience informing her current views. 100%. Kesha Hamilton, owner and consultant for Diverse Minds Consulting, LLC, marries her lived experience with historical knowledge to bring you racial equity consultation, coaching, and training that will lead to transformation in your organizations. So many red flags just popped up. You have no idea. That's insane. Speaking of marrying, let's read on. Kesha Hamilton established Diverse Minds Consulting, LLC to fill the gaps that exists in the messaging and training of diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism. Diverse Minds Consulting, LLC, with Kesha Hamilton, is committed to historically authentic racial equity engagement from the lens of one closest to the problem and naturally closest to the solution. Kesha Hamilton uses her lived experiences as a Black African woman, a woman formerly married to a white man, hey, at least they capitalized white too, the experiences of a mother to biracial children, the many experiences of other Black and brown individuals, and a continuous study of history to inform the training and consultation of Diverse Minds Consulting, LLC. In addition to an AAS in criminal justice and law enforcement, she holds dual Bachelor of Science degrees in political science / pre-law and public and nonprofit administration. She also holds a certificate from Eastern Michigan University in Leading for Equity and Justice, a certificate of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Workplace from USF Office of Corporate Training and Professional Education, and a Workforce Trends and Equity e-certificate from Nonprofit Leadership Alliance, and is recently an alumna of JLUSA's prestigious Leading with Conviction class of 2021. While education is important and encouraged by Kesha, the lived experience of Black and Brown individuals coupled with historical knowledge supersedes the knowledge a traditional degree might provide in the study, implementation, and tools required to realize transformed organizations. This is literally nothing but a string of woke buzzwords, and nothing could surprise me less. Kesha is also a certified trainer with Bridges Out of Poverty and a certified mediator with SE Dispute Resolution Services. She's probably terrible at that job because she is not interested in mediating any kind of anything with the people who currently have a huge issue with what she said. Kesha is the chair for the second year in a row for the first State of Michigan Racial Equity Commission. This commission was created and established largely due to Kesha's grassroots organizing efforts. Kesha is the co-chair and has been for the last 3 years of Racing for Equity, a local grassroots organization committed to racial equity in the workplace and in government. Kesha was elected by citizens of her city's education district to serve on the public schools board of education and hosts a weekly Facebook Live meeting for diverse minds with Kesha Hamilton, which is dedicated to conversations surrounding diversity, equity, inclusion, anti-racism, employment, education, and all facets of our lives. Oh, goodness gracious. That's a very long statement, and I'm sorry that we had to read it, but it sounds like she's never actually done any kind of real work in her life. Oh, somebody made, let's see. Prior to the meeting, Superintendent Jeff Beal told local site MLive, I received attention from several concerned citizens within the last month who are frustrated with the racial tones or undertones of trustee Kesha Hamilton's social media. Here's a flyer that says Jackson School Board hates white people. Here's her tweet. Fight racism, spelled wrong, in our schools. Join your local chapter. And this is the Proud Boys insignia. Local far-right group Proud Boys have been handing out leaflets saying Jackson School Board hates white people, with her tweet pictured. White supremacist Proud Boys group and their allies are planning a demonstration at this month's JPS board meeting on Tuesday, January 17th at 5:45 p.m. Members from the extreme groups took screenshots from my personal Twitter account and are ignorantly using them to attempt to further divide our community. Is it ignorant, Kesha? Is it really? Or do they have a very valid point because you are in a position of power in the education system and you're actively espousing actual racism? She says these groups are attempting to advance extreme views, attempting to capitalize on the currently split board, and are attempting to neutralize the greatest threat to them, an outspoken Board of Education member, me, while confusing you. Her tweet is pretty straightforward. Don't let that happen. Focus on the real issues and stand up for public equitable education. The issues. This is an issue against public education that serves all students. Yeah, all students, including white students whom you've literally just said you don't like. This is an issue to further disempower our community. This is an attempt to steal a seat of a board member who champions equity and works for you. On this MLK weekend, perfect time to virtue signal, don't simply attend beautiful events, but also remember the words of solidarity that Dr. King spoke. Do the work of his dream and stand up for your fellow man. That means stop judging people based on the color of their skin, Kesha, which is one of his best known quotes. Now, I don't claim to love Martin Luther King Jr. I don't know very much about him, but I do know that he did not like the idea of judging people by the color of their skin, which is exactly what Miss Kesha Hamilton is doing. Anyway, that's enough about her. I hope that she will be held accountable for what she said. She certainly should not be in a position of authority over white students. But speaking of wokeness, we're going to talk about how Disney fell to the wayside. The Daily Mail is saying that Disney has lost its magic. How this happened? They forced families to pay as much as $8,000 to visit the happiest place on earth, ruined classic movies with woke warnings, lost the Don't Say Gay fight with DeSantis, and are accused of not doing enough to weed out pedophiles. That's right. Batches of pedophiles are being found working at Disneyland and Disney World, and it's honestly super disgusting. Really uncomfortable. I don't like that these people are allowed to work anywhere near children. They're probably, many of them, in violation of court orders. A century ago, Walt Disney started making cartoons for children, crafting a world of magic that spawned blockbusters and resorts across the globe. But the happiest place on earth is now stripping middle-class families of as much as $8,000 to visit Disney World in Florida. Classic movies like Dumbo and Peter Pan, which helped forge the studio's identity, are now tarnished by woke warnings over racism fears. New movies are bombing at the box office, and the woke ideology has left its board in disarray on a collision course with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Bob Chapek was fired after taking on DeSantis over the Don't Say Gay bill, only to be sensationally replaced by Bob Iger, who resigned just 3 years before. Since losing more than $10 billion during the pandemic, shares in the company have dived by a third in the last year. Adding to its woes, the local sheriff has noted the continual appearance of Disney employees when pedophiles are busted in Polk County sting operations. This keeps happening. Crazy. Oh my gosh. So one-day ticket at Disney World has rocketed from $85 in 2011 to $175 in 2023, more than 40% higher than the rate of inflation. When it started, it cost $3.50 for a one-day ticket, then $9.50, $33, $48, then $85, $125, and finally $175. Holy cow. Racism warnings have been slapped on classics. First ever openly gay character bombs the box office, and movies are remade with diverse casts. Disney has slapped racism warnings on classics, suffered box office disasters with its first openly gay character, spent millions remaking old movies with diverse casts. Viewer discretion is now advised on iconic movies that built the Disney brand, including Dumbo, Peter Pan, and The Jungle Book, over sensitivities about race. They say sensitives, but that's because they need a copy editor. Edits have been made where lines are ripped out of beloved songs and changed to acknowledge the harmful impact of racial stereotypes. It's so boring. I know you guys know that they completely dismantled Aladdin. They went after Peter Pan. They went after Dumbo, the Aristocats, The Lady and the Tramp, and the Swiss Family Robinson. Disclaimers added to these movies appear at the start of the movie and read, "This program includes negative depictions and or mistreatment of people and or cultures." These stereotypes were wrong then and are wrong now. Rather than remove this content, we want to acknowledge its harmful impact, learn from it, and spark conversation to create a more inclusive future together. Try to say inclusive without rolling your eyes. It's very, very difficult. In relation to the Aristocats, Disney explained in a press release about the warning that it contains a scene where one cat, voiced by a white actor, yelled out stereotypical Chinese words while playing the piano with chopsticks. Okay. It also noted that Peter Pan, Native Americans are referred to as Redskins and described in a scene in which Peter and the Lost Boys dance in Native American headdresses in a form of mockery and appropriation of Native people's culture and imagery. Oh my gosh, I can't help rolling my eyes so hard at this. This is complete nonsense. At least they're finally starting to lower their prices a little bit at their Anaheim site. Ron DeSantis battled them over this. Yeah, DeSantis went after them hard. Bob Chapek mismanaged them. What do you guys think about the whole Disney legacy? I was never a big Disney fan. I never really cared for Disney movies. I thought they were fake and sappy. I really did not like the princesses because I was always very tall. And of course I had brown hair, not blonde hair. Oh, here's one of their pedophile employees. That's really nice. Delightful. But I never saw the true appeal. I never wanted to go to Disneyland or Disney World, and I'm really glad that I didn't, because tying up that much of my identity to this company would have been soul crushing and incredibly difficult. I'm sure it is for lots of people. If you guys loved Disney, let me know what you thought of all that. Oh, Adrian's here. Yay. Hello, Adrian. I'm really curious if you think the same about Disney or if you really love them as a young person. I don't think that they're going to win this battle in Florida. I'm not convinced. I think DeSantis is too resolved to kicking out their bad ideas. And frankly, I'm grateful. I think it's a wonderful thing. I wish that more governors would do the same, but I think that they should. Their tax, I forget what it's called. They have some kind of tax deal worked out with the state of Florida so they can earn a lot of money. They pay like a separate kind of corporate tax, and they get some kind of reprieve from taxation, which is ridiculous. And I think that that's absolutely what DeSantis should go after. But As far as I know, he hasn't gone after them lately. Hopefully it will continue, and hopefully they will continue to struggle as we watch them get woke and go broke. Oh, speaking of woke, here's another good one we're going to learn about together. Woke British man is mocked after slamming naked violent capitalism. Oh my, violent capitalism? Let's learn more. I hope nobody got hurt. Of the U.S. on first stateside trip, with friend replying that New York City had left him sobbing. Oh my goodness, these are modern men, I swear. Twitter user going by the name Phoebe Waller-Stein from Cardiff, Wales said, "The commodification of everything is on a level I never truly thought possible." Dylan Lewis Rowland, a proud socialist, oh gosh, there's your problem, and town councillor in Welsh town that I cannot pronounce, replied, "I remember being in New York City and crying after one night." So this is the mental fortitude of socialists currently. The pair have been mocked relentlessly for their dramatic responses, with the UK skewered for its crumbling health service, nondescript food, and high taxes. This is kind of an ongoing battle between the US and Europe. Europe mocks the US. The US points out that we pay for their defense funding, and this is why they're able to afford ridiculous health schemes. It's a socialization of misery and the privatization of wealth. Oh my. Replying to his tweet, Dylan Lewis Rowlands, a proud socialist and town councillor in unpronounceable Welsh town, said, "I remember being in New York City and crying after one night." These are the people that we are dealing with. This is Phoebe Waller-Stein, and this is Dylan. And they look like they could be the same person with different haircuts. The pair have been mocked relentlessly for their dramatic responses, with the UK skewered for its crumbling health service, nondescript food, and high tax rate. "The first time you taste seasoned food will have that effect on you, poor guy," John Laudanum said. Mike Gray responded, "How is that tax rate working out for you? It is much higher in the UK." Chris Toll said he is a hyphenated British socialist and a perfect anti-capitalist fighting for the proletariat at a low-end corporate Marriott, but the only one who understands his plight is another British hyphenate. He is not wrong. Others pointed out that Britain was just as capitalist as America, pointing to London, home to the largest stock exchange outside the U.S. You know, it's a slow news day when we're talking about this stuff. I just thought it was interesting. Art Ruiz replied, "I've been to London. It's not exactly a socialist utopia." Look at all these responses. Man, they're privatizing wealth in America now? That's so crazy. America is England, except somehow more racist and with more cars. That's hilarious. It's not at all true. Another user called Strong Patat argued, saying, "New York City is not any more capitalist than London." Yeah, entirely correct. This is just so dumb. I feel like people go into the big cities expecting a kind of social media version of the world, and when they realize that reality doesn't match up with what they thought it would be like because they've done nothing but scroll Twitter for the majority of their adult lives, they're shocked and apparently moved to tears. So I'm curious what the BMI is of our two heroes here, and I'm curious what they think about physical exercise. I would really encourage them to start lifting weights. I would encourage them to increase the amount of meat they consume. I would firmly encourage them to meet a lady and or touch some grass, because it sounds to me like they've been living for far too long online. It sounds like they're terminally online. And when exposed to the real world, their socialist ideals tend to crumble. It leaves them shaky. And you know, we could be a little bit compassionate, because when everything that you believe is shaken up, like you truly believe that socialism is the way, and you go to a place where it's so obvious that capitalism is working so incredibly well, of course, it's going to leave you maybe a little bit shaken and a little bit reevaluating your life. So we could have a little empathy. It can be a little hard to see that you've been wrong about everything for your entire life. But on the point of socialism, there's a really interesting survey that came out that showed what people really think about how Biden is spending all of America's money. I know you guys probably know that we just hit our debt ceiling the other day. Let's look at this headline. "You need how much, Comrade Biden?" Some 51% of adults say America is becoming a big government socialist state as climate spending pushes debt above $31 trillion. Americans, by a 20 percentage point margin, see socialism on America's horizon. Yeah. Well, rejoice, British patriots. It's coming here soon. They're not necessarily thrilled by the idea. Most object to more social spending. Likewise, there is limited support for state-run healthcare and energy sectors. Yeah, no kidding. Survey comes after years of elevated government spending. Republican tax cuts and Democrat spending hikes have blown up the deficit. The U.S. reached its borrowing limit of $31.38 trillion on Thursday. And what are we going to do about it? Yeah, a lot of people think that it is. Not sure, disagree strongly. Most Democrats seem to disagree to some degree or another. Although there are 27% of Democrats who somewhat agree and then strongly agree that the U.S. is evolving into a big government socialist state. The only difference is they probably think it's a good thing. Republicans, a majority, agree that it is at least somewhat becoming a big government socialist state, and lots of independents think the same thing. So that could be bad news for Democrats who are really pushing all this stuff. So 14 plus 17 equals 30 something. 30 something percent of independents say that the U.S. is not really or not much evolving into a big government socialist state. And then the other, however many, think that it is. And some aren't sure. President Joe Biden last month inked a $1.7 trillion federal spending bill with defense and social spending after in 2021 signing his more than $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill focused on transportation, utilities, and climate change schemes. It's not only Democrats who have raised borrowing. Former President Donald Trump's tax cuts of 2017 were not accompanied by significant spending reductions, upping the deficit by nearly $7.8 trillion during his time in the White House. This is super important. You can't cut taxes and not also cut spending. If you do it that way, you just end up with a huge deficit, which is unfortunately exactly what Trump decided to do. One of my biggest pet peeves about him was that he was not cautious with spending. And given how he ran his companies, that shouldn't really surprise anyone, but it is not a tenable solution for a company or for a country. It might be for a company. I mean, at least with a company, you can just go declare bankruptcy and move on. But I don't think that Trump had the right mindset when it came to making sure that we weren't spending too much. All right, Adrian Curry, I loved Disney. I didn't identify as anyone. I didn't give a crap. I just liked Lion King, Ariel, etc. I also used to pretend I was a unicorn 99% of the time. Yeah, for sure. I think that Disney was really good for imagination when we were growing up. I remember being forced to watch multiple times over the course of several visits to my grandparents, The Lion King. And I was just like, what is so great about this movie? And I was the right age. I was like 7 to 9 years old. And I was just like, this is not interesting to me. I have no interest in seeing this anymore. And everybody, I realize that I run the risk of being criticized by pretty much everybody on both sides of the aisle. It's pretty bipartisan that The Lion King is a fantastic movie or whatever, but I never liked it. I never got into it. I never recognized, I never really empathized with the characters, and I never really understood their plight, which is ridiculous. St. Miles says, Disney in the 70s was great. Come to the 80s and 90s, pedo central. Yeah, possibly so. Lion King was one of my absolute favorites. Yeah, I'm probably going to get squished for that one. Surenko says, I used to like Disney. St. Miles says, needs to go back to Britain. Yeah, I believe he did, crying if I recall correctly. Keenan says, I like the stampede scene of Lion King. First CGI. Oh, really? I didn't realize that. Interesting. Ekim Alhar says, I'll give him that high taxes point. Yeah, so Donald Trump did not cut spending and he did cut taxes. So we ended up with a huge deficit after him. Did not like that at all. Jungle Book was my favorite. We stuck in the exit doors 3 times after each showing to watch it over and over. Okay, so Jungle Book was actually a pretty good one. I did appreciate that one for sure. I remember liking Robin Hood. It was really fun. They had some really good villains in that one too. That was great. And I really liked like the snake. I liked the fox and all the, anthropomorphized animals I thought were adorable. Somebody says, hey, I like the Hannah Montana era, LOL. So a lot of those live action Disney shows for kids, very, very bad for the actors. The actors were terribly abused, if I recall correctly. And it was the same for Nickelodeon shows too. Not a good deal for kids to be acting in these kinds of shows. Really, really bad for young people to be in that kind of environment. Not good for their mental state or their mental health, and often they were sexually abused. Fantasia was out there back in the day. Yeah, for sure. Phil of the Future and Lizzie McGuire were fun. Oh, yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. The Lion King was Shakespearean. I have heard that. I heard that it was based on Hamlet, which is a very interesting idea, but I'm not fully sure of the connection. He says, I used to like Disney. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Overlay Iger employment start at Disney and its rise in ticket price, for sure. Tony says it's all ridiculous. Lids teaches kids nothing at all. Not sure what you're referring to, but we have talked about education a lot lately. Andy says, I hope you like that intro music by Night Mirror, and the other contributing artist on our introduction was Wake Up Waverly, who made that adorable little video that we played last thing before we went live. Stop racism, LMAO. Such an extreme statement. Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, they did spell it terribly, so I would deduct points for that for sure, but that's because I'm a little bit of a stickler for grammar. Night Mirror says Andy has joined us in the chat. Really? That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. That's super cool. We've really been enjoying his music before we start the show. Tony says at age 15, had a letter handed to me for university entrance. Canada said no. I went to high school again. After 2 months, they gave me a diploma. I asked why. They said, you make the students look stupid. Huh. Maybe they should have just put you into college for sure. Somebody says, first super chat. Andy says, first super chat over $50 gets a 20-minute phone call with Andy and Lids. Oh, 20 minutes, huh? That's awesome. All right. No, I do not interview Henry Kissinger, although, Andy, that is the tweet from last night. So I guess he doesn't have one for us tonight. Oh, is it? Oh, your link must have been old. I'm so sad. Disappointed. Yeah, disappointed. Keenan says, I've been the victim of the police calls claiming the girls were a victim. I have that cop's point of view video on my YouTube. Interesting. If you claim you are the victim, you can blame others for any crime with impunity. That's right. That's something that these critical race teachers have discovered. And it's really interesting. I'm just mostly troubled that this woman has 6 children. And I'm sure she's teaching all of them very thoroughly about her views and how she thinks she is correct. That's a good song. What makes the red man red? No idea. All right, you guys, we're going to talk a little bit about Biden's corruption because it is a never-ending font of content. Well, you gave us the real link from tonight? Oh, awesome. What does this one say? It says, tune in right now live, youtube.com, blah, 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 Trad Queen Story Hour. Yes, correct. Thank you. Tonight, Rocky Mountain Oyster Bar. Oh my gosh. No Rocky Mountain oysters. We're never. Right, guys. I'm back. I'm sorry about that. Please forgive me. We're going to read a couple articles about Joe Biden's incompetence, and then we're going to hustle over to Larry Sharp's show. I'm very excited about that. All right, here. Biden classified files were sent to another D.C. location before they were stored at the think tank by a team led by an aide who'd been recommended by Hunter, sparking more questions about the documents debacle. So I really wanted to talk about and look into this lady that Hunter Biden really strongly recommended because I think that there's definitely something there, but I don't know enough about her. So we're going to kind of dabble in this a little bit here. Files from Biden VP's office first went to a transition office near the White House. Then they went to a temporary Penn Biden space in downtown D.C. Eventually, they went to the Penn Biden think tank that paid Biden $900,000. A Biden lawyer discovered classified material and called National Archives. Hunter recommended the aide who didn't know they were classified, says a source. Interesting. The space in D.C.'s Chinatown neighborhood was overseen by the Penn Biden Center, while its prized location near the Capitol was being readied. The office had its formal opening attended by Biden in 2018. So these files went somewhere else first, and then they were also transferred to a different location. But the aide said that she had no idea that they were classified, which leads me to not believe a word she says. Everything was just moved en masse to temporary space, then moved to Penn Biden, the person told DailyMail.com. So here we have our chain of events, our timeline, really interesting. The new location adds yet another layer to the confusing classified documents debacle in which the files ended up inside a locked cabinet at the Penn Biden Center, where they got discovered in November 2022 while raising new questions about the total universe of people who might have had access to the documents over the last 6 years. People involved in the process include Biden's former staff members, General Services Administration personnel, and the staff of the think tank, an entity that would later have roles for senior aides that remain in Biden's orbit, including now Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, who served as the center's managing director. Everyone is in on this. Oh my gosh, the level of corruption here is just genuinely unsettling. The woman who oversaw the packing and shipping of Biden's documents in 2017 was a former administrative assistant, Kathy Chung, who secured the position with a well-placed recommendation from Hunter Biden, who touted her capabilities to his father. Hunter Biden recommended it. They'd worked together at the Department of Commerce years ago, the person said. Hunter notified her of the opportunity, asked if she was interested, and found out that she was. He spoke to her father about her, said the person. So did former Delaware Senator Ted Kaufman, a longtime Biden associate among the trio of Democratic senators she had worked for in the past. Hunter Biden did a stint at the agency under Secretary William Daley at the tail end of the Clinton administration from 1998 to 2001, following a job at a bank at the start of a career in law and lobbying. Then, as now, he had his father's ear on a variety of matters. Here is Hunter Biden and his underage niece and a family friend, I believe, dressed in their bikinis, in his father's 1967 Corvette, which was located near the classified files in the garage in Wilmington. Chung was the first person to be publicly identified as meeting with federal investigators in the matter. She spoke to U.S. Attorney John Losh's office before AG Merrick Garland appointed special counsel Robert Hur to oversee the document probe. Officials working with Biden at the time who remain attached to him are senior aides Steve Ricchetti and Kate Bedingfield and senior advisor Mike Donilon. The former assistant helped oversee the packing of files during the busy tail end of Biden's second term as VP. That was a time that featured a flurry of activity by Biden himself, even in his final days in office. It required keeping his office functioning even while things were being put away for safekeeping. There is no indication that Chung knew that the boxes of documents also included documents marked classified that Biden lawyer Patrick Moore discovered while clearing out Biden's former D.C. office in November. She helped pack up the contents of the vice president's office, including documents, and was responsible for their being transferred to the transition office, said the person who said Chung had responsibility for the move. She just didn't know the contents of every box that was being moved. Mixed up with that have been reported to be 10 government documents, some marked top secret, were the contents of desks and cabinets from Biden's old office, papers related to late son Beau Biden's funeral, and a document related to home repairs at Biden's Wilmington home, a site that was itself revealed to contain additional classified material. Scroll to the bottom and see if they have a good conclusion for us. As the DailyMail.com reported this week, a newly surfaced photo from the laptop appears to show the president's son driving the classic Corvette Stingray outside the same Wilmington home where the car and documents marked classified were being stored. At the White House Friday, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre again stressed that Biden and his team were cooperating with investigators after alerting the National Archive following the discovery of classified material. She once again declined further comment, even to specify that what Biden was referring to when he said he had no regrets referring matters to the Justice Department. Biden's 68 days of silence on the documents farce. White House used a group of loyalists, including Joe's sister, to keep the discovery secret for 6 weeks in a failed plot to prevent a special counsel and make the debacle go away, Bombshell report claims. We're just going to read the first part of this so I can wrap it and tootle on over to hang out with Larry Sharp on his channel. Biden and a small team of advisors decided to keep documents a secret. They gambled that they could handle it privately with the Justice Department. After 68 days, they kept discovering classified documents hidden from the public. Then it all blew up in their faces. President Joe Biden and a small team of trusted advisors, including his sister Valerie, plotted to keep the discovery of classified documents a secret, betting they could quietly handle the problem without it becoming a public knowledge, a Bombshell new report claimed on Friday. For 68 days it succeeded, then it blew up in their faces. So 6 of his closest friends all were in on this. Their plans backfired when CBS News reported on the existence of Biden documents on January 9th, leading to a chain reaction that developed into a full-blown crisis for the White House, where Biden's reputation took a hit, Republicans accused him of hypocrisy, and even Democrats questioned the administration's judgment on the matter. And as we just established, Biden recently said he had no regrets about the way he handled those documents. Really upsetting stuff, and I'm really curious if this is just kind of the excuse that the Democrats needed to say, we're not going to run him in 2024. We're going to look for somebody better. But we will have to see what happens there. They also timed it very well, so everyone could possibly forget about it by November 2024. So we'll see what happens for sure. I personally find this very intriguing because it just highlights so much of their hypocrisy and the insane double standard they set up for themselves. But we'll see what happens. We'll see if anyone decides to hold him accountable. If nothing happens, I won't be in the least surprised. But there is certainly enough here that they could be that Biden could definitely be almost impeached over this, if not thoroughly investigated. Not that I believe that his Department of Justice will actually do anything with that, but we have to see what happens. I agree with Ben Shapiro when he says that these are some of the dumbest people in the country running our institutions, but we will just have to see. Stay tuned for sure. It's going to be exciting, whatever happens. I know that much for sure. I'm going to scoot on over to hang with Larry Sharpe. Join us over there at the Sharpe Way, SHARPE. It's going to be a good time there for sure as well. Hopefully I'm still able to talk. And until next time, bye guys. How's it going?